The phone call arrived on a Thursday morning while I was examining financial reports from my most recent hotel acquisition. Sarah Mitchell from Premier Events sounded distinctly uneasy as she conveyed news that would fundamentally alter how my family viewed me. Ms. Richardson, I'm calling regarding your mother's 60th birthday celebration this Sunday. Your siblings have requested that we remove you from the invitation list, but they still anticipate your $85,000 contribution to handle all the expenses. I paused, setting aside documents outlining my recent purchase of Grandview Hospitality Group, the hotel chain where my mother had served as regional manager for 28 years. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse office, I surveyed the Miami skyline, where my business empire encompassed everything from luxury resorts to boutique restaurants. The morning sun reflected off the glass towers that housed several of my subsidiary companies, creating a glittering panorama of success that my family had deliberately chosen not to investigate. Remove me from the guest list? What reasoning did they offer? Sarah's voice grew more strained, as if she were reading from notes she'd rather not deliver. They mentioned wanting to preserve a certain elegant atmosphere. Your sister Amanda specifically stated that your mother's former colleagues and hospitality industry executives would be attending, and they believed your presence might not match the sophistication of guests they're expecting. The absurdity was staggering. For nearly a decade, my family had regarded me as the family member who'd gotten lucky with some property investments. They'd heard whispers that I was doing well, but consistently dismissed my achievements as either exaggerated or temporary. They remained willfully ignorant that those ventures had evolved into Sterling Investment Partners, a $4.2 billion hospitality and real estate investment firm controlling properties across 8 states. My quarterly reports showed revenue streams that rivaled many mid-cap public companies, yet to them, I remained the family member who'd abandoned real hotel management to chase what they viewed as a risky gamble that happened to pay off temporarily. I understand. And they expect me to finance a celebration I'm deemed unworthy to attend? It appears that way, yes. Your brother Marcus mentioned that your mother has been anticipating this birthday party for months, and they don't want to disappoint her by reducing the scale of the celebration. He emphasized that this is a milestone birthday and deserves a memorable celebration. Marcus, my younger brother, who worked as director of operations at Continental Hotels while running a small consulting firm on the side. He'd spent years making pointed remarks about my property dabbling while establishing himself as the dependable, accomplished child with the stable corporate career. At family gatherings, he would introduce himself as director of operations at Continental Hotels, while introducing me as Elena, who got lucky with some real estate investments. The condescension had become so routine that I'd stopped attending most family events, preferring to send generous gifts and polite excuses. What none of them knew was that I had quietly been involved in planning this celebration from the beginning. 3 months ago, when my mother mentioned wanting a special 60th birthday party, I had discreetly contacted Premier Events and worked with them to curate a vendor list that would provide exceptional service at reasonable rates. Sarah had no idea that the woman coordinating the logistics was the same person whose family was now trying to exclude her from the guest list. Sarah, I need you to cancel the entire celebration. I'm sorry, what? But ma'am, it's your mother's milestone birthday. I can't simply? Yes, you can, because the celebration is scheduled at Ocean View Resort, which my company owns through Sterling Luxury Properties. The catering is being handled by Coastal Culinary Services, also mine, acquired 18 months ago. The floral arrangements are from Tropical Elegance, part of my hospitality services portfolio. The transportation service for out-of-town guests is provided by Elite Car Service, another subsidiary. And most significantly, your guest of honor worked at Grandview Hospitality Group, which I acquired 6 weeks ago in a $340 million cash transaction. The silence stretched for nearly 45 seconds. I could hear Sarah shuffling papers, likely trying to cross-reference the information I'd just provided with her vendor contracts that I had helped her secure through my network. Ms. Richardson, I don't comprehend. The contracts display different company names for each service provider. All subsidiaries of Sterling Investment Partners. I'll have my legal department forward the ownership documentation within the hour, including the corporate structure charts showing how each company fits into my portfolio. Consider this official notification that all services are being terminated immediately. My legal team will handle any cancellation fees or contractual obligations. After ending the call, I remained in my executive chair, gazing out at the hospitality empire I'd constructed while my family chose to see only what they wanted to see. The irony was particularly sharp this morning as I watched a Sterling Hotel's shuttle transport guests between my properties along the Miami Beach corridor. It had all begun with a small beachfront inn I'd purchased with my savings after leaving hotel management 12 years ago. My family had been appalled, their daughter choosing entrepreneurship over the stability of corporate employment. What they never grasped was that I hadn't failed in corporate hospitality. I'd simply realized that owning the properties was more rewarding than managing them for others. That first inn had been a struggling 24-room property that I'd transformed into a boutique destination. The profits from its sale had funded my second acquisition, then the third, each success building momentum for larger deals. Within 8 years, I was acquiring entire hotel chains, restaurant groups, and hospitality service companies. Each successful acquisition had funded the next purchase, then the next, until I controlled a portfolio of properties worth billions. Yet to them, I remained simply Alina, the sister who'd gotten lucky with real estate, and should be grateful that her gamble had paid off temporarily. At my cousin's wedding last year, my aunt had congratulated me on my good fortune with property investments, while suggesting I should consider diversifying into more stable investments before the real estate market turned. The woman was trying to be helpful, but her advice was based on assumptions that couldn't have been further from reality. My phone vibrated against the mahogany desk. Marcus's name appeared on the screen, and I could already imagine the panic in his voice. "Elena, what the hell have you done?" "Good morning to you as well, Marcus." The event coordinator just called Mom in a complete panic, claiming the birthday party is canceled. "She insists you own all the vendors. That has to be some kind of mistake. You do well with your property investments, but you can't possibly own major hospitality businesses." "It's not a mistake, Marcus. I own all of them. Every single vendor on that list is either a direct subsidiary or a portfolio company of Sterling Investment Partners." "Elena, I work in this industry. I know the major players." "There's no way you could own companies like Ocean View Resort without someone in our family knowing about it." "You work for Continental Hotels, Marcus. You see the industry from the perspective of a mid-level operations manager. I own 52 properties across 8 states, hotels, resorts, restaurants, catering companies, and hospitality service providers. Your entire division at Continental generates less annual revenue than 3 of my smaller properties." The silence indicated he was processing this information, probably trying to reconcile the sister he'd categorized as lucky but small-time with the business empire I'd just described. "You're exaggerating. Even if you own some properties, there's no way you could have built something that large without industry publications covering it." "I'm sending you documentation. Financial statements, property ownership records, acquisition announcements from Hotel Business Magazine and Hospitality Net for the past 5 years. After you review it all, we can continue this conversation." I disconnected and immediately called my assistant. "Jennifer, I need you to prepare a comprehensive portfolio package for my family. Include the Sterling Investment Partners corporate overview, the complete property portfolio with valuations, the last 3 years of audited financial statements, and copies of all the major acquisition announcements from industry publications. Also include the documentation for the Grandview Hospitality acquisition, particularly the sections showing Mom's employment history there." "How detailed should this be, Ms. Richardson?" "Detailed enough that they can't dismiss it as exaggerated, but comprehensive enough that they understand the full scope of what they've been choosing to ignore for the past decade." 45 minutes later, my phone began ringing continuously. First Marcus, then Amanda, then my parents. I allowed them all to reach voicemail while I completed reviewing the Grandview Hospitality integration strategy. The acquisition had been particularly satisfying because I'd been able to improve employee benefits and working conditions that had been neglected under the previous ownership. Several of Mom's former colleagues had already reached out to thank me for the positive changes, though they had no idea I was related to their former regional manager. Marcus's message was frantic. "Elena, I've examined the documents you sent. These numbers are." I had no idea. "We need to speak immediately. This is Mom's birthday. We can't allow family conflicts to destroy her celebration. Call me back as soon as you get this." Amanda's message was more calculated, her corporate training evident in her measured tone. "Elena, I've reviewed the portfolio Marcus shared with me. I clearly underestimated the scope of your business. If these documents are accurate, we need to have a family conversation about what happened here. Please return my call so we can resolve this situation appropriately." My parents' message broke my heart. My mother's voice was confused and wounded. "Sweetheart, we're receiving very conflicting information about this weekend. Marcus is showing us business documents that don't match what we thought we knew about your work. Your father is extremely upset, and honestly, I don't understand what's occurring. Can you please call us? We just want to understand what's happening." I waited until evening to return their calls, giving them time to fully absorb the documentation I'd sent. They were at Amanda's house, undoubtedly strategizing how to handle their suddenly much more successful daughter than they'd been willing to acknowledge. I could picture them gathered around Amanda's dining room table, the financial statements spread out like evidence in a case they couldn't quite believe. "Elena," my mother's voice carried forced brightness, "we've been trying to reach you all day." "I know, Mom. I've been in board meetings. We're finalizing the acquisition of a resort chain in the Caribbean, and the negotiations required my personal attention." "Honey, Amanda and Marcus showed us some very impressive business documents. We clearly didn't understand how much your property investments had grown into something so substantial." There it was. Even in her attempted acknowledgement, she couldn't help but frame my empire as property investments that had grown rather than a deliberately built business empire. The diminutive language revealed how deeply ingrained their need to minimize my achievements had become. "Is that what you wanted to discuss?" My father took the phone, his voice carrying the tone he used when trying to manage difficult hotel guests. "Sweetheart, we owe you an apology. We didn't realize how successful you'd become, but surely we can resolve this situation with the birthday party. Your mother has been looking forward to this celebration for months." "There's no situation to resolve, Dad. Amanda and Marcus decided I wasn't appropriate company for Mom's celebration, but they still wanted my money to fund it. They literally told the event coordinator that my presence wouldn't match the caliber of guests they expected. That's not." "Look, perhaps they used poor judgment, but this is about celebrating your mother's milestone birthday, not about business. We want you there. You're our daughter. Do you want me there now that you can't pretend my success is just temporary good luck? Elena, that's not fair. Isn't it? 6 months ago, you asked me when I was going to diversify beyond real estate before the market turned. You suggested I consider applying for a management position at a stable hotel company like Grandview, telling me that my property experience might help me get hired there. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. I now own Grandview Hospitality, along with the executive team that would have been interviewing me for that management position. Sweetheart, people make mistakes. We can do better." "I hope so, Dad. But change requires acknowledging what went wrong. You all spent years being comfortable with the idea that I was doing well enough, while refusing to look closely enough to see that I was building something that surpasses any corporate salary. Do you know what it felt like to sit at family dinners while you praised Marcus for his stable career and Amanda for her corporate success, while treating my achievements as lucky breaks that I shouldn't count on lasting?" My mother took the phone back, and I could hear tears in her voice. "We love you, Elena. We've always been proud of your success. You love the version of me that doesn't challenge your assumptions about what success looks like, but you weren't proud of me when you thought I was just doing well with real estate. You were relieved that I wasn't struggling, but you never asked questions because you didn't want to know if it was bigger than you were comfortable acknowledging. That's not true, sweetheart. Mom, 4 months ago you offered to help me with health insurance because you assumed my property business couldn't provide comprehensive benefits. You were trying to be kind, but you never asked about my actual situation. The reality was, my companies provide better benefits than most Fortune 500 corporations, including full medical, dental, vision, unlimited vacation time, and profit-sharing bonuses. But I never bothered to correct your assumptions because I wanted your pride to be based on who I am, not what I own. After the conversation ended, I made a decision that would permanently reshape our family dynamics. I called my head of corporate security and had him compile a detailed report of every financial interaction I'd had with my family over the past 5 years. If they wanted to understand the full scope of their willful blindness, they needed to see how wrong they'd been about everything. The results were astounding. I'd been quietly facilitating their lifestyle in ways they never realized. Marcus's consulting firm operated from office space I owned through a property management subsidiary, receiving below-market rent that saved him nearly $30,000 annually, a favor I'd arranged when he mentioned struggling with overhead costs. Amanda's hotel projects had received several strategic investment opportunities from companies in my portfolio, deals that had significantly boosted her career advancement. My parents' vacation home in the Keys had been mysteriously refinanced at an incredibly favorable interest rate through a bank where I held significant influence, saving them over $200,000 in interest payments. The report detailed dozens of instances where I'd quietly smoothed their paths to success. Marcus's biggest consulting contract had come from a hotel chain I'd recently acquired. Amanda's award-winning renovation project had been funded through one of my investment subsidiaries. Even their social status had been enhanced by invitations to exclusive industry events that I'd arranged through my hospitality connections. I'd been the invisible force enabling their comfortable lifestyle while they chose to see me as someone who'd gotten lucky with some property deals. The irony was so complete, it was almost artistic. But I also did something else. I called the city's most exclusive event planning company and arranged for a surprise birthday celebration for my mother. Not the large corporate networking event they'd planned, but an intimate gathering at my private beachfront estate in Key Biscayne. I wanted to show them what a celebration looked like when it was truly about honoring someone you love, rather than creating opportunities for professional advancement. The guest list included my mother's closest friends from her early career, colleagues who'd remained in touch long after changing jobs, neighbors who'd become genuine friends over the years, and the small group of family members who'd always treated me with respect regardless of their understanding of my career success. Sunday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine streaming across Biscayne Bay. I was in my home office, reviewing final preparations for the surprise celebration, when my security system alerted me to visitors at the gate. Through the high-definition cameras, I saw Amanda's white Tesla with my entire family inside, their faces pressed against the windows as they took in their first glimpse of my estate. I'd never invited them to my residence. They'd never asked for my address, never shown curiosity about how or where I spent my time outside of family gatherings. The estate was a waterfront property I'd purchased discreetly 4 years ago when I wanted more privacy for entertaining clients and partners. The previous owner had been a tech mogul who'd built the house as a showcase of sustainable luxury, with solar panels, rainwater collection systems, and native landscaping that required minimal maintenance while providing maximum beauty. "How did you find me?" I asked through the intercom system. "We hired a private investigator," Amanda said, her voice tight with stress. "Elena, we need to talk. This is important." I granted them access, curious about what their investigation had revealed. They drove slowly up the palm-lined driveway, past the tropical gardens and guest pavilion, until they reached the main residence. The driveway curved through carefully planned landscaping that showcased native Florida plants while providing privacy from the street. Bougainvillea cascaded over stone walls, while royal palms created natural shade over the parking area. Through my office window, I watched them remain in the car for several minutes, absorbing the scope of the property. The main house was a modern interpretation of Mediterranean architecture, with clean lines and expansive glass walls that maximized the ocean views while providing protection from hurricane-force winds. The guest pavilion housed a fitness center, art studio, and additional accommodations for visiting business associates. When they finally approached the front entrance, my mother was crying. The massive wooden doors, carved by artisans in Guatemala, opened onto a marble foyer that showcased pieces from my contemporary art collection. Elena, this place is breathtaking. Thank you. Would you like to come inside? They followed me through the foyer, past a sculpture by a renowned Miami artist, into the great room with its soaring ceilings and panoramic ocean views. The space was designed for both intimate gatherings and large-scale entertaining, with comfortable seating areas that took advantage of the natural light and water views. Floor-to-ceiling windows could be opened completely to create an indoor-outdoor living space that captured the ocean breezes. "The view is incredible," Amanda whispered, finally finding her voice as she stared out at the endless blue of Biscayne Bay. "I purchased the property for the privacy and the location. The house was designed by a team of architects who specialized in sustainable luxury homes. Every element was chosen to maximize the water views while minimizing environmental impact." Marcus was studying the wine cellar visible through temperature-controlled glass walls. The collection included bottles from my own vineyard in Napa Valley, as well as rare vintages from around the world. Some individual bottles were worth more than his monthly salary. "Elena, this wine collection alone must be worth more than you want to know." "Yes, wine has become both a passion and an investment strategy. I own a vineyard in California and have partnerships with vintners in France and Argentina. My father was examining the custom architectural details and imported finishes throughout the space. The kitchen featured countertops carved from single slabs of Carrara marble, while the floors were made from reclaimed teak that had been sustainably harvested. Every fixture and finish had been selected for both beauty and durability." "Sweetheart, this must have cost." "I own it outright. No mortgage, no investors, no partners. Everything you see was purchased with profits from my property business that you've been dismissing as temporary good luck. The house, the furnishings, the art collection, the wine cellar, all paid for with cash generated by the companies you've been choosing not to take seriously for the past decade." Amanda sank into one of the kitchen island chairs, her corporate composure finally cracking. "Why didn't you ever correct us when we minimized your success? Why did you let us think you were just doing well with some property investments?" "Because I wanted you to be proud of me for following my vision and building something meaningful, not impressed by my net worth. I wanted you to invite me to Mom's birthday party because I'm your daughter and her child, not because I can afford to pay for it. I wanted your respect for my choices, not your shock at my bank account." "But we are proud of you," Marcus protested, though his voice lacked conviction. "Really? When was the last time either of you asked about my business with genuine curiosity rather than polite interest? When did you ever show real interest in understanding what I was building, rather than assuming it was just real estate luck that would eventually run out?" Neither could answer, and their silence filled the space between us like a physical presence. That afternoon, I watched my mother celebrate her birthday in my oceanfront garden, surrounded by 30 of her closest friends and longtime colleagues who had come to honor her decades in hospitality. These were people who'd known her since she was a young hotel supervisor working double shifts to support her family, who'd watched her develop into a respected industry leader through dedication and integrity rather than politics and connections. The celebration I'd arranged was intimate and personal, focused entirely on honoring my mother's achievements and the relationships she'd built over 3 decades in hospitality. There were no corporate executives using the occasion to network, no business cards exchanged over cocktails, no speeches designed to impress potential clients. Instead, there were heartfelt toasts from colleagues who'd worked alongside her during challenging times, stories from friends who'd watched her balance career advancement with raising 3 children, and genuine laughter from people who loved her for who she was rather than what she could do for them. Amanda gave a toast that surprised me with its sincerity. "To my mother, who taught us that real success comes from dedication, integrity, and treating people with respect. And to my sister Elena, who taught us today that there are many paths to success, and the most impressive one is staying true to your own vision, even when the people who should support you most choose not to see what you're building." Later, as the sun set over Biscayne Bay, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reflected off the calm water, my mother found me by the infinity pool that seemed to blend seamlessly with the ocean horizon. "Sweetheart, I need to thank you for today." "For what?" "For showing me what a real celebration looks like." Those corporate executives Amanda invited to the original party wouldn't have cared about my 30 years in hospitality management. They would have seen it as a networking opportunity, a chance to make connections that might benefit their own careers. But the people you brought today, they were here because they genuinely wanted to honor my career and celebrate this milestone with me. You deserve to be celebrated properly, Mom. Your career achievements stand on their own merit. They don't need to be validated by impressing industry executives who never worked alongside you. 8 months later, Amanda called with an unexpected request that marked the beginning of a new chapter in our family relationships. Elena, I've been thinking about leaving Continental Hotels to focus full-time on my boutique resort development concept. I've been researching sustainable development practices and working with local communities to create authentic experiences. Would you consider being an advisor? Not an investor necessarily, just someone who can help me think through the challenges of building something meaningful from scratch. What kind of properties are you envisioning? Small luxury resorts in emerging destinations. Places where we can work with local communities to create authentic experiences while providing economic opportunities for residents. I want to build something that actually makes a positive impact, not just generates profits. What does Marcus think about this career change? He's actually planning to go full-time with his consulting firm. After seeing what you've built and understanding how much more fulfilling it is to create something meaningful rather than just climbing someone else's corporate ladder, we've both realized that working for other people's dreams isn't as rewarding as building our own. As I watched my family gathered around the dinner table that evening at my parents' house, a weekly tradition that had developed since the birthday party, I realized that the confrontation had been the best thing that could have happened to our relationships. Not because it punished them for their dismissive attitudes, but because it forced all of us to confront what really mattered in our relationships. Marcus was describing his plans to expand his consulting practice to help independent hotels compete with major chains through authentic storytelling and community engagement. Amanda was researching sustainable development practices for her resort concept. My parents were asking thoughtful questions about entrepreneurship and expressing genuine interest in understanding the challenges and rewards of building something from nothing. The following month, as I stood in my office watching Amanda sign the lease for her new resort development studio's headquarters in one of my buildings, at full market rate, by her insistence, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not because I'd proven my worth to my family, but because we'd finally learned to respect each other's choices and support each other without conditions or assumptions. That, more than any business acquisition or financial milestone, represented the real success I'd been seeking all along.